Absolutely. And speaking of stage events that help shape people's perceptions, let's open up the mailbag. And we'll take this question from David. The day after 9/11, our servile Western media outlets continually showed Palestinian people dancing and rejoicing in the streets as if they were celebrating the events that took place that horrible day. Was that footage taken completely out of context? It seemed to me as if our media was trying to frame a specific narrative in order to show how barbaric and criminal the Palestinians can be, thus giving the Israeli army all the more reason to continue the ethnic cleansing.
Right. Yes. Yes. The short answer is yes, the footage had nothing to do with Palestinians celebrating 9/11. We can get a couple of handles on this. One from History Commons. The excellent History Commons has this entry on that specifically. Television news coverage on 9/11 repeatedly shows images of Palestinians rejoicing over the 9/11 attack. According to Mark Crispin Miller, a professor of media studies at New York University who investigated the issue, the footage was filmed during the funeral of 9 people killed the day before by Israeli authorities. He said to show it without explaining the background and to show it over and over again is to make propaganda for the war machine and is irresponsible. So that's one part of that footage that they were showing over and over and over. The other part was, well, we can pick this up again. There's an excellent overview article that I'll link to in the show notes that has a lot of different links. One of the links is to a book called The Fraud of the Fraud. Have you been taken for a ride? And that book notes, Annette Kruger-Spitta of ARD, German Public Broadcasting TV magazine Panorama, stated that inspection of the unreleased complete tape of that footage shows the street around the celebration was quiet, and a man in a white t-shirt is noticeable for inciting the children and is fetching new people again and again. The woman who is remembered for her cheering, whose name is Noel Abdel Fattah, later stated she was offered cake if she celebrated on camera. At the time, she was unaware of the 9/11 attacks and said she was frightened when she saw the pictures on television of how she was being portrayed to the world. And then that book goes on to reproduce a Spiegel article, which I haven't checked. I think it's available still online, but if it is, I'll throw it in the show notes. Anyway, it's reproduced in that book that's talking about that ARD investigation in more detail. And the other part of this is there was, at the same time as this was being debated, there was a canard thrown out by some Brazilian researcher who said, no, this is footage that was taken 10 years ago. They were saying it was taken in 91, but that timeline didn't add up. And some people said, no, it was 1990, and other people were saying, no, it was 1993. That is a blind alley. No, this was not taken in the 1990s. It was from around that time, but it had nothing to do with the celebration of 9/11. And that's again, yeah, it's a perfect example of how media manipulation gets people ready for war. And that's another example of how 9/11, war on terror, war in the Middle East all go together in this big package. And 9/11 truth is the well, I don't know, what's the best metaphor? It's the bow that if we unwrap, the whole present comes out, which is the present of the truth, which unlocks all of the propaganda and crap that's been built around this for so long.